moving on to the next part. By the way, I noticed because next 2 Mondays are holidays, so this is the last actual lecture. There were lab sessions, but the lecture, this is the final lecture before the midterm. Is that good? You guys happy or sad? Don't care. Okay. Yes. But Wednesdays are still on. So, yeah. So far, we have conveniently assumed that every address space of every running process fits into memory. However, we need to support many concurrently running large address spaces. So in order to do that, what OS does is it stashes away a portion of address space to a hard disk drive. So again, there's a hierarchy, right? So there are some other storage that's slower but larger. So we're going to have to use that. So the key question here, how can operating system make use of a larger, slower device to transparently provide the illusion of a large virtual address space? So the concept we use here is called a swap space. So swap space is basically a space on the disk for moving pages back and forth, to and from memory. So there's a memory and there's a swap space. So a swap space is part of a disk. So OS would read and write from and to the swap space in a page size unit. And of course, it now needs to remember the disk address of a given page. So an example that the textbook provided here is that for PFN 0, you have VPN 0 in your physical memory, but it looks like VPN and VPN 2 are stashed away to the swap space. Now, PFN 1 has VPN 2 in here, but VPN 0 and 1 are in the swap space, etc., etc. Oh, actually, PFN 1 also has VPN 3 on the physical memory. Interestingly, process 3 has none on physical memory, which is fine. You don't need it. You don't use it. So a hierarchy below physical memory, there's a swap space. So with swapping, hardware must know whether PT is actually present in the physical memory. All right, so you're trying to access something. Now you need to know, is it in the actual physical memory or is it down in the swap space? All right, so again, we're gonna use a new bit called a present bit. So if it's set, basically it's in a physical memory. So if you're trying to access a page that is not in physical memory, so that's a page fault. So when a fault happens, obviously there needs to be a handler. So OS will look into the PT to find the address, right? Because it's in the swap space, so you need to know where it is. Then you're gonna issue a request. So this is IO, right? Disk IO. Basically, fetch the page into memory, please. I need it in the memory. Now, when that disk IO completes, now OS updates the page table and the PFN into the PTE, and then you have to retry the instruction because there was a page fault, so it failed. Now, this is not like segmentation fault where your process most obviously dies. You're just put it in a wait state and you retry. Yes, so during IO, the process obviously blocked because you're waiting. So obviously, we need to have page in and out of memory. So you need a replacement policy. So yeah, so page fall, control overflow. And the lines are a little longer, but it's not, there's no hard concept. I won't go line by line, but here, let's say when there's a miss, there are usually 3 cases. First of all, it's not even valid, right? So there's a seg fault. Now let's say at least is present and valid, right? So yes. So then you have to insert into TLB and retry. Or if it's a page fault, you raise exception, but you need to call a page fault handler. So that's the hardware. Now in the software part, so basically, if there's no space, if there is no free space, so you're trying to fetch something, but there's no space to move it back into memory, then you're gonna have to wait until the replacement algorithm creates a space for you, right? Now, if you have a space, then you're gonna have to read from the disk, and then once you read it, then you put PT present to true now, because it will be now in the PTE. You put the frame number in, and then you retry. Now it's, now it's in the memory. So whatever page instruction that results in a page fault needs to retry, and that will obviously succeed. So basically, to recap on this, OS must find a physical frame for the soon-to-be faulted-in page to reside within. And if there's no such page, meaning space is full, then basically you just have to wait until the replacement algorithm creates space for you. So when does replacement actually occur? So if we try to replace it like every time for each page, it's not actually very efficient. So what the OS would do is it has something called a swap daemon, or sometimes called page daemon. It runs on the background. So when there are fewer than low watermark pages available, then the swap daemon runs and it would replace. But instead of just replacing one, it would replace a few until you hit the high watermark pages available. So basically you have like a window. If you hit the low, you create until you hit high, then you stop, you go back to sleep. And so basically you cluster or group a number of pages and you write them out at once to the swap partition, obviously much more efficient to do so. Oh my God, finished, yes. Any question? Yes, sir. What slide number? Number 6, okay. Yeah, speak. Why can't you just press the divided know whether it is okay? So you're talking here. So there's a PLB miss, right? So it's not in the TLB. So if it's in a TLB, right? This is a TLB miss, so you're actually getting, so when you have a TLB miss, you need to get the address now, right? So you go get it, you get the PT address, right? So if valid, obviously this is sec fault, so this is valid. So now you need to update the TLB because it wasn't in TLB, right? So you had a miss. So like when we say you need to access memory, there are sometimes you need to access memory for the instructions and whatnot, but this is just for sometimes just to get the address, right? So when we say extra memory access, just for translation, for instance. Yeah. Yes, sir. Oh, which slide number are you talking about? The last three from the back. You mean here? Third of part 3. Okay, so that's this one. Okay. What was the question again? Oh, you mean the the actual address? Where is it stored? I think that comes in the next slide, next lecture. It will probably come in the next lecture. Yeah. So the next lecture is, I think, like in 4 weeks. But then it goes into details of replacement policies and all that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. 26. Right. So so basically, how does it get allocated, right? You're saying. So right now, if it's invalid, obviously you can't use it, right? So if you need it, you need to get it allocated, right? Right. That's why you have valid and invalid. So usually there's like a 5-10 minutes of a grace period. Yeah, and we're done anyways, but yeah. Yeah, so it's invalid, then you get an error, right? So basically, if you need to create. Right. And the process like a program. So if you need it, operating system will create for you. Yeah. I don't think this is like a user level thing, because then it can be protection issues and all that. Yeah. Hmm? Why do we need protection for in a page table? Because sometimes, remember, like we have sometimes we share code, right? So you can have multiple sometimes you had even code and stack and heap share, or sometimes as we do encourage sharing of space for efficiency, you want to make sure whether they can just read versus actually write or execute. I think this goes back like a couple lectures. Because not encourage, but like you allow sharing, then because that makes your space a little more compact, and you can reuse it sometimes. But then again, you don't want a process messing up with other process. Sure, yeah. Okay, which slide? Okay, but let's just flash it anyways. Yeah. You mean here, right? So this is like in the earlier part, right? We had hardware versus software. This is like they're working together actually here. So this is not a hardware approach versus software approach. This is working in harmony. Yeah. So when page fall happens, this is what hardware does. And basically there's a handler that's done in the OS. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry, because before I do the lecture, I redo it and it's changed, so I'll send the slides, the TA, so, yeah. Yeah. I will do that. Well, the thing is, I want to upload it as early as possible for you guys to study. But then as I prepare a lecture more rigorously, I do change a little bit. So I will make sure after the lecture or just before lecture, I will send them to the TAs. And yeah, it's a good suggestion. Thank you. And I will also correct some typos that I noticed during the slide as well. Okay. All right. If no further questions, good luck with the deadline tomorrow. And most likely I'll see you on Wednesday during the lab session.